The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble that made the ground shake. Minho walked forward with steady steps, his black diplomatic uniform making him look small next to the giant alien beings around him. Behind him, 3 other humans followed in perfect formation. They had done this walk many times before, but today felt different. The chamber was huge beyond imagination. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, and the walls curved away like the inside of a giant egg. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that circled the room. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled with inner light. Others were clouds of colored gas that moved and shifted like living fog. The strangest ones looked like giant insects, with too many eyes and clicking sounds that hurt human ears. Minho reached the small platform assigned to Earth's delegation. It sat in the far corner of the room, barely big enough for 4 chairs. The humans had to crane their necks to see the center podium where the real decisions were made. This was not an accident. The aliens had placed them there on purpose. Hana sat down next to Minho and tried to keep her face calm. She was Earth's best military mind, but here she felt like a child at an adult meeting. Her hands wanted to make fists, but she kept them flat on the table. 3 years of these meetings had taught her to hide her anger. On her other side, Jiwan opened her datapad and checked her notes one more time. She was the smartest scientist Earth had ever produced, with discoveries that had saved millions of lives. But the aliens treated her like she was playing with toys. Today, she hoped things would be different. The 4th human, Kiwan, said nothing. He just watched everything with sharp eyes. His job was to remember every word, every gesture, every sign that might help Earth understand what the aliens really wanted. Prime Vorthak floated to the center podium. He was the leader of the hegemony, the most powerful group in the galaxy. His body looked like a mix between a jellyfish and a machine, with metal parts growing through transparent flesh. When he spoke, his voice came from speakers all around the room. "We gather again to discuss the human problem," Vorthak said. The translator made his words sound cold and official. "These newcomers still do not understand their place in our civilized galaxy." Whispers and clicking sounds filled the chamber. The aliens were talking about humans like they were not even there. Minho had heard this before, but it still made his stomach tight with anger. A Zalani representative, her crystal body flashing bright blue, spoke next. "The humans are too aggressive. They expand too fast. They ask for too much." Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "They are like children," added a Nethros delegate, his gas form turning dark purple. "They need our guidance to become proper members of society." Minho stood up slowly. The chamber fell quiet. Even after 3 years, the aliens still found human movements interesting to watch. "Honored delegates," Minho said, his voice carrying clearly through his translator. "We come here in peace, as we have for 3 years. We ask only for equal treatment and fair representation in galactic affairs." Laughter filled the chamber. It was not the warm laughter of friends, but the mean laughter of bullies. The sound came from 1,000 different throats and speakers, creating a noise that made the humans want to cover their ears. "Equal?" Vorthak's mechanical parts whirred as he moved closer. "You have been in space for less than 100 of your years. We have been civilized for millions. You think this makes you equal?" More laughter echoed through the room. Hana felt her face grow, hot with shame and anger. These beings had never fought the wars she had won. They had never solved the problems she had fixed, yet they treated her like a stupid child. Jiwan decided this was her chance. She activated her holographic display, filling the air above their platform with images of her latest research. The medical breakthrough had taken her 10 years to perfect, and it could help every species in the galaxy. "If I may," Jiwan said, standing up, "I would like to present a medical advancement that could benefit all species." We have developed a treatment for cellular decay that affects most carbon-based life forms. The display showed complex molecular structures and test results. The data was clear and impressive. This discovery could add decades to the lives of billions of beings across the galaxy. Vorthak barely looked at the presentation. "We do not need primitive solutions to problems we have already solved," he said with a wave of one mechanical arm. The hologram disappeared. "But you have not solved it," Jiwon said, her voice getting stronger. "Your own medical reports show that cellular decay still affects 60% of galactic species. This treatment could—" "Silence," Vorthak commanded. "Do not lecture us, child. We were curing diseases when your species was still living in caves." The chamber erupted in more laughter. Some aliens made sounds that might have been clapping. Others flashed lights or changed colors in what seemed like approval. Jiwon sat down hard, her face red with embarrassment. She had spent years perfecting this treatment, running thousands of tests, proving that it worked. But they would not even look at her data. Kiwon leaned over to whisper in her ear. "Remember everything," he said quietly. "How they act, what they say. We will need it later." The meeting continued for hours. Every human proposal was rejected without consideration. Every request for fair treatment was met with condescending remarks about human inexperience. The aliens spoke about Earth's people like they were pets who had learned a few tricks. When humans asked for better trade agreements, they were told they were too young to understand galactic economics. When they requested equal voting rights, they were reminded that civilized species earned their place over millions of years. When they offered to share their technology freely, they were patted on the head like good children offering to help with adult work. The final insult came when Vorthak announced the Council's decision about human expansion rights. "We have decided that humans may colonize 3 more systems," he said, "but only with proper supervision from established species." Supervision. Like they were children who could not be trusted alone. Minho stood up one last time. The chamber fell quiet, waiting to hear the humans beg or argue or make more promises. Instead, Minho's voice was calm and steady. "We came here in good faith," he said. "We offered friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. We shared our knowledge freely and asked only to be treated as equals." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien eyes as he could. "But it is clear that this council does not want peace. You want subjects, not partners. You want servants, not allies." Minho gathered his papers and stood. "The United Earth delegation withdraws from these talks. We will not return." Hana, Jiwon, and Kiwon stood with him. Without another word, the 4 humans walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence of the chamber. Behind them, confused whispers began to grow. The aliens had expected begging or anger or promises to do better. They had not expected dignity. As the massive doors closed behind them, the last sound the humans heard was nervous laughter that did not sound quite as confident as before. The emergency meeting room in Geneva was packed with the most important people on Earth. General Daeho stood at the front of the room, his weathered face showing no emotion as he looked at the reports spread across his desk. He had fought in 3 wars and negotiated dozens of peace treaties, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "The delegation has returned," he announced to the room. "Ambassador Minho has confirmed what we all feared. The Galactic Council has no interest in treating humanity as equals." Murmurs filled the room. Some people looked angry, others seemed scared. Everyone knew this moment would change everything for the human race. Minho himself sat at the long table, still wearing his diplomatic uniform but looking tired. The long journey back from Nexus Prime had given him time to think about what came next. "They laughed at us," he said quietly. "They dismissed our science, our medicine, our offers of cooperation. To them, We are nothing more than primitive children playing at being adults. Secretary of State Yunji nodded grimly. She had hoped the talks would work, but she had also prepared for this outcome. What are our options, General? Daeho walked to the massive wall screen and activated it with a gesture. The display showed a map of human space, with hundreds of points of light representing colonies, trade routes, and military installations. We have been preparing for this possibility for years, he said. Operation Fortress begins now. Dr. Suman stood up from her seat near the back. She was young, barely 30 years old, but her genius with quantum computers had revolutionized human technology. Her fingers danced over her tablet, and the wall screen changed to show the Galactic Trade Network. This is what they do not understand, Suman said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. They think we are dependent on them. They think we need their permission to exist in space. Red lines began appearing on the display, marking human-controlled trade routes and installations. There were far more than anyone in the room had expected, even those who worked in the government. We built this, Suman continued. Every hyperspace beacon that makes their trade possible. Every communication relay that lets them talk across the galaxy. Every computer system that manages their data. We gave it to them freely and they never bothered to learn how it really works. Admiral Junho, commander of Earth's space fleet, leaned forward in his chair. He was a practical man who preferred action to talk. How long will the withdrawal take? 72 hours for complete pullback to Sol System, Daeho replied. All diplomatic personnel are already on their way home. Trade vessels have been recalled. Our military advisors are leaving their posts. What about the colonies? Asked Dr. Yuna, head of the colonial administration. We have millions of people living outside Earth space. They come home, Daeho said firmly. Everyone, every human citizen, every research station, every mining operation. If the galaxy does not want us as equals, they can learn to live without us entirely. The room fell silent as people realized the size of what they were planning. Humanity was about to disappear from galactic civilization completely. Minho spoke up from his seat. Some of our people will not want to leave. They have built lives on other worlds. They have friends among the alien species. They can choose, Daeho replied. But they choose as individuals, not as representatives of Earth. We will not have our citizens used as hostages or bargaining chips. Communications Director Jinwoo raised his hand. What about our ongoing projects? The medical research we are doing with the Zelani, the terraforming work on Kepler 442b? Dr. Suman smiled, but it was not a happy expression. That is the beauty of it. They cannot continue without us. We designed those systems. We understand the science. We built the machines. Without human involvement, their projects will fail within months. She activated another display, this one showing the quantum networks that connected galactic civilization. Watch, she said, and began typing commands into her tablet. One by one, sections of the network began going dark. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for years suddenly showed error messages. Communication channels went silent. Data processing centers reported system failures. This is just the beginning, Suman explained. We built redundancy into our systems, but we built it for human operators. The aliens never learned to maintain what we gave them. General Daeho nodded approvingly. How long before they notice? Hours for the minor systems. Days for the major ones. Within a week, they will realize how much they depend on technology they do not understand. Admiral Junho stood and walked to the display. What about military concerns? Will they try to force us to return? Let them try, Daeho said grimly. They have seen our diplomatic capabilities and our civilian technology. They have never seen what we can do when we stop being polite. The room filled with nervous energy. Everyone understood that humanity was taking an enormous risk. If this plan failed, Earth might find itself at war with the entire galaxy. Doctor. Yuna raised another concern. Our economy depends on galactic trade. Without access to alien markets and resources, millions of people could lose their jobs. Our economy adapted before, it will adapt again, replied Finance Minister Seok-jin. We have been quietly preparing for economic independence. Our colonies produce everything we need for survival. Luxury goods we can live without. Besides, added Dr. Suman with a slight smile, they need our goods more than we need theirs. Human agricultural techniques feed half the outer colonies. Our medical supplies prevent plagues on dozens of worlds. Our entertainment systems keep their populations happy. When those things stop working, they will remember how valuable we really are. The meeting continued for hours as department heads reported on their preparations. The withdrawal, as they were calling it, was the most complex operation in human history. Every human citizen had to be contacted. Every installation had to be abandoned or defended. Every system had to be secured or shut down. But as the reports came in, a pattern emerged. Humanity was far more important to galactic civilization than even they had realized. Human fingerprints were on every major system, every important trade route, every critical piece of infrastructure. They treated us like junior partners, Minho said as the meeting wound down. But we were the foundation holding everything together. General Daeho looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. Some looked scared, some determined, some eager for the challenge ahead. Are we all agreed then? Full withdrawal from galactic affairs? Effective immediately? One by one they voted. The decision was unanimous. As people began to leave the room, Dr. Suman stayed behind to continue her work. Her fingers flew over multiple keyboards as she implemented the shutdown protocols she had been developing for years. Each command sent ripples through galactic civilization that would not be felt for days. Admiral Junho paused at her shoulder. "Any regrets?" he asked. Suman looked up at him, her young face serious. They had their chance to treat us fairly. They chose to treat us like children instead. Now they get to learn what happens when the children take their toys and go home. Outside the meeting room, the orders were already going out. Across human space, fleets were moving, installations were shutting down, and people were packing their lives into transport ships. The great experiment in galactic cooperation was over. Humanity was going home, and they were taking their civilization with them. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between wanting respect and earning it. 3 months after the humans left, Prime Vorthak stared at the reports covering his desk with growing alarm. The elegant curves of his office aboard the massive station Nexus Prime felt smaller somehow, as if the walls were closing in around him. His mechanical parts whirred softly as he processed information that made no sense. "Explain this to me again," he said to his aide, a nervous Kresh drone whose compound eyes flickered with stress patterns. "The hyperspace beacon network is failing, Prime," the drone clicked in its rapid way of speaking. 47 major trade routes have reported significant delays. 17 routes are completely unusable. Vorthak's organic parts pulsed with confusion. "These beacons have operated flawlessly for decades. How can they suddenly fail?" "We do not know, Prime. The failure reports mention something called maintenance protocols and quantum calibration cycles. Our technicians do not understand these terms." The door to Vorthak's office chimed, and Trade Coordinator Kethril materialized. In the center of the room, her crystalline body flickered with the rapid light patterns that meant urgent news. As a Zelani, she normally moved with graceful, flowing motions, but today her movements were sharp and agitated. "Prime Vorthak," she said, her voice resonating like struck crystal. "We have a crisis. The economic cascade is accelerating faster than our models predicted." "Cascade?" Vorthak asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. Kethril activated her portable display, filling the air with holographic charts and graphs. All the lines were trending downward in steep, frightening curves. "Trade volume has dropped 60% in the past month. Shipping costs have tripled. 17 colony worlds are reporting supply shortages. This cannot all be because of the human withdrawal, Vorthak protested. They were a minor species. Their contribution was negligible. That is what we believed, Kethril replied, her crystal form dimming with what might have been embarrassment. But we were wrong, very wrong. She changed the display to show the Galactic Infrastructure Network. Red sections marked failures and problems, and there were far too many red sections. The humans built most of this, she said quietly. Not the physical structures, but the systems that make them work. The computer programs, the maintenance schedules, the repair protocols. We used their technology because it was efficient and reliable, but we never learned how it really worked. Another chime announced the arrival of Velos, the Nethros representative. His gaseous form flowed through the doorway like colored smoke, shifting from blue to purple to red as his emotional state changed. Nethros were normally calm and logical, but Velos moved in agitated patterns that filled the room with swirling colors. "The computational crisis spreads," Velos said, his voice coming from speakers throughout his gas cloud. "Our data networks are collapsing. Banking systems are failing. Even simple communication between worlds becomes difficult." "How is this possible?" Vorthak demanded. "We have our own computer technology. We built galactic civilization long before humans left their planet." "Yes," Velos replied, his colors shifting to deep purple. "But in the past 50 of their years, human quantum processing systems became integrated into everything we do. They offered the technology freely, and we accepted because it was superior to our own methods. Now those systems require maintenance. We cannot provide." Kethril nodded, her crystal body flashing in agreement. "It gets worse. The humans designed their systems with what they called graceful degradation. When human technicians were maintaining them, small problems were fixed, before they became large problems. Now, without that maintenance, everything is failing at once." "Show me," Vorthak ordered. The holographic display changed to show a detailed breakdown of galactic systems. The image was terrifying in its completeness. Human technology was everywhere, woven into the fabric of civilization like threads in a tapestry. Pull out those threads, and everything began to unravel. "Food distribution networks," Kethril listed, highlighting systems as she spoke. They used human agricultural optimization algorithms. Medical treatment facilities relied on human diagnostic programs. Transportation scheduling, energy distribution, waste processing, communication protocols, all of it integrated with human designs. They made themselves indispensable, Vorthak realized with growing horror. "No," Velos corrected, his colors shifting to a thoughtful green. "We made them indispensable. They offered their help freely. We accepted because their solutions worked better than our own. When they asked for nothing in return, we assumed it was because they knew their place." A new alarm chimed through the office. Vorthak's aide scurried forward with another urgent report. "Prime, we are receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim colonies. The agricultural systems are failing." Vorthak felt his mechanical parts grinding as stress affected his biological systems. "What agricultural systems?" "The food production facilities that feed 30 billion beings," the aide replied nervously. "They use human-designed growing methods and genetic modifications. Without human technicians to maintain the systems, the crops are dying." The room fell silent except for the soft whirring of Vorthak's mechanical parts and the gentle hum of Velos's gas circulation. The magnitude of their mistake was becoming clear. "How long do we have?" Vorthak asked quietly. "Before people start starving?" Kethril's crystal form dimmed. 6 months, maybe 8 if we implement strict rationing. "Before the economy completely collapses?" Velos added. "Perhaps 3 months? The banking systems are already unstable." "Before civilization breaks down entirely?" The creche aide spoke for the first time, its multiple voices creating harmony. Unknown. It depends how quickly other species lose faith in the Council's ability to govern. Vorthak moved to the great window that looked out over Nexus Prime's vast structure. Ships from dozens of species moved through the space lanes around the station, but there were fewer ships than there should be. Already, some species were reducing their participation in galactic affairs. What about their medical research? He asked, remembering the presentation the human scientist had tried to give months ago. Dr. Jiwon's cellular decay treatment, Kethril confirmed. We dismissed it without proper review. Now we discover that 17 member species suffer from conditions that her treatment could cure. Without access to her research, millions will die unnecessarily. And their military advisors? Vorthak asked. Gone, his aide reported. All human military personnel have withdrawn from joint operations. Several conflict zones that had been stable under human mediation are now experiencing renewed fighting. The irony was bitter. The humans had been called too aggressive, but their presence had actually prevented wars. Their military expertise had been solving problems that other species did not even recognize. They planned this, Vorthak said finally. This was not an emotional response to their treatment at the Council. This was a calculated strategy. Yes, Velos agreed, his colors shifting to respectful yellow. While we saw them as primitive and impulsive, they were quietly making themselves essential to our survival. Every gift they offered, every bit of help they provided, created a dependency we never recognized. Because we never bothered to understand what they were actually doing, Kethril added. We saw them sharing their technology and assumed they were trying to buy our approval. We never realized they were building leverage. A priority communication alert filled the room with urgent tones. Vorthak's aide quickly activated the display, and the image of Counselor Zephon of the Andorian Collective appeared. Prime Vorthak, Zephon said, his 6 arms gesturing frantically. We must discuss emergency measures. Our industrial systems are failing. Our people grow restless. Several colonies are demanding to withdraw from the collective if we cannot restore basic services. Similar calls were coming in from across the galaxy. The crisis was spreading faster than anyone had predicted, and solutions were nowhere to be found. The humans had built their systems well, too well for anyone else to easily replicate or replace. We need to contact them, Vorthak said finally. We need to convince the humans to return. They will not respond to our communications, his aide reported. All diplomatic channels return the same automated message. Humanity is no longer participating in galactic affairs. Then we must go to them, Vorthak decided. Prepare a delegation ship. We will travel to their space and negotiate directly. Prime, Kethril said carefully. What if they refuse to see us? What if they demand terms we cannot accept? Vorthak looked at the reports scattered across his desk, each one documenting another system failure, another crisis, another step toward complete societal collapse. The proud galactic civilization that had dismissed humanity as primitive children was crumbling without their help. Then we accept their terms, he said quietly, because the alternative is watching everything we have built fall apart. The great irony was complete. The species that had called humans aggressive and immature now had no choice but to go to them as beggars, hoping for mercy they had never shown. 6 months after the human withdrawal, the galaxy was falling apart. Prime Vorthak stood in the emergency command center of Nexus Prime, surrounded by screens showing crisis reports from every corner of civilized space. His mechanical parts had developed a grinding sound from the constant stress, and his organic components showed signs of fatigue that medical treatment could not fix. Status report, he demanded as his senior staff gathered around the central holographic display. Trade. Coordinator Kethril's crystal form flickered weakly as she activated her presentation. The light patterns that normally danced through her body had become dim and erratic. Economic collapse is accelerating beyond our worst projections, she said, her voice lacking its usual musical quality. 43 member worlds have suspended their council contributions. 15 more have threatened complete withdrawal. The holographic display showed the galactic economy as a web of interconnected lines. 6 months ago, it had been a brilliant network of gold and green connections. Now, most of the lines were red or had disappeared entirely. The Kresh Collective has lost synchronization across 12 hive clusters, reported Defense Coordinator Thymos, his insectoid form clicking with agitation. Without human neural stabilization technology, their group consciousness is fragmenting. They are requesting immediate assistance. Assistance we cannot provide, Vorthak replied bitterly. What about the Zelani trading guilds? In chaos, Kethril admitted. Our quantum encryption systems have degraded to the point where secure transactions are impossible. Most guilds have reverted to primitive bartering systems. Trade volume has collapsed by 92%. Environmental Coordinator Nexus floated forward, her Nethros gas form a sickly brown color instead of its usual healthy blue. The terraforming. Projects are failing, she reported. 47 worlds dependent on human atmospheric processors are becoming uninhabitable. We estimate 15 billion beings will need evacuation within the year. Evacuation to where? Vorthak asked, though he already knew there was no good answer. The ships needed for such a massive operation required navigation systems that no longer worked properly without human maintenance. Prime. His personal aide scurried forward with another urgent report. We are receiving desperate communications from the Outer Rim. The agricultural failures are worse than predicted. 3 colony worlds report complete crop failure. Starvation has begun. Vorthak closed his primary eyes and tried to process the magnitude of the disaster. How had they been so blind? How had they failed to see that their entire civilization had become dependent on the species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers? What about our attempts to contact Earth? He asked. The same automated response, his aide replied. All. Human space is sealed. Their border defenses prevent any approach. Even our most advanced stealth ships cannot penetrate their detection grid. Their detection grid? Vorthak asked. I thought humans had primitive military technology. Defense Coordinator Thymos made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. That was another miscalculation, Prime. Our intelligence suggests that humans were deliberately showing us only their basic military capabilities. The defensive systems they have deployed around their space are far beyond anything we have seen before. On cue, the display changed to show the Sol system's defensive perimeter. The image made Vorthak's mechanical parts clench involuntarily. Layers of energy shields, weapon platforms, and detection arrays surrounded human space like the shell of an impossibly complex egg. Any ship approaching that barrier would be detected, analyzed, and potentially destroyed long before it could deliver a message. They were ready for this, Vorthak realized. They knew we would eventually come to them as supplicants. Analysis suggests they have been preparing for total isolation for decades, Thymos confirmed. Their military advisors were never just helping us. They were studying our capabilities and weaknesses. A priority communication alert interrupted the briefing. The main display activated to show Counselor Zephon of the Andorian Collective, but his appearance was shocking. The proud leader who had once commanded respect across 6 star systems now looked haggard and desperate. His 6 arms trembled as he spoke. Prime Vorthak, Zephon said, his voice cracking with strain. 3 more Andorian worlds have declared independence from the Collective. They blame the Council for the crisis. If we cannot restore basic services within 30 days, the entire Collective may fragment. We are working on solutions, Vorthak replied, though they both knew it was a lie. What solutions? Zephon demanded. Our best scientists cannot even understand how human quantum processors work, let alone repair them. Our engineers are trying to rebuild systems they never learned. To build. We need the humans, Prime. We need them now. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in uncomfortable silence. Zephon was not the only leader facing rebellion from his own people. Across the galaxy, local governments were losing control as basic services failed and populations grew desperate. Sir, Communications Director Valus spoke up from his workstation. We are receiving reports of unauthorized attempts to contact Earth. Several species are trying to negotiate separate peace agreements with humanity. Which species? Vorthak asked, though his sinking feeling told him the answer would be bad. The Altarian Republic, the Centauri Federation, and the independent colonies have all sent diplomatic missions toward human space, Valus reported. They are offering individual trade agreements and technology exchanges. The news hit like a physical blow. The unified front that had once dismissed human demands was fracturing as each species tried to save itself. Have any of them succeeded in making contact? Kethril asked. Unknown, Valus replied. Their missions entered human space 3 days ago. We have heard nothing since. On the outer edge of the Sol system, Captain Yunho watched the alien ships approach from the command deck of the human battleship New Sol. His sensors had been tracking the 3 diplomatic fleets for days as they slowly approached Earth's defensive perimeter. Should we hail them, Captain? Asked his communications officer. Let them come, Yunho replied calmly. They are about to learn that humanity does not negotiate with individual species while the Council still exists. We will accept surrender from the entire galaxy, or from none of it. The alien ships reached the first sensor line and immediately found themselves surrounded by human vessels that had been invisible moments before. Advanced stealth technology that made their ships appear like empty space had hidden an entire fleet. Back on Nexus Prime, Vorthak received word that the diplomatic missions had been turned away without negotiation. The message was simple and direct. Humanity will speak only with the full Galactic Council, and only when the Council comes to acknowledge its errors. They want us to come to them, Vorthak said, finally understanding the full scope of human strategy. They want us to admit publicly that we were wrong. The humiliation would be complete, Kethril observed. The species that once ruled the galaxy would be forced to beg for mercy from those they called primitive children. Humiliation is a luxury we can no longer afford, Vorthak replied. How many more beings will die while we preserve our pride? His aide hurried forward with another crisis report. Prime, the medical situation is deteriorating rapidly. Without access to human pharmaceutical research, we are seeing the return of diseases that were eradicated decades ago. The plague outbreaks on Rigel 7 have spread to 4 neighboring systems, and our own attempts to recreate human medical technology? Complete failures, admitted Chief Medical Researcher Kylara. Human biochemistry is far more complex than we understood. Their treatments work by manipulating quantum interactions at the cellular level. Our best scientists cannot even measure these interactions, let alone replicate them. The same story was repeating across every field of knowledge. Agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, communication, defense. Every aspect of galactic civilization had become dependent on human innovation that no other species truly understood. Prepare my personal ship, Vorthak ordered finally. I will go to Earth myself. Prime, Thymos objected. The risk is enormous. We do not know how they will receive you. They could take you prisoner or worse. Then I will be a prisoner, Vorthak replied. But I will not sit here and watch civilization collapse because of my pride. As preparations began for the desperate journey to human space, reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy. The Zalani crystal cities were going dark without energy management systems they could not repair. Nethros gas worlds were losing atmospheric cohesion without the computational models that maintained their delicate balance. Kresh hive minds were fragmenting into individual consciousness for the first time in their species' history. The proud galactic civilization that had lasted for millions of years was dying, killed not by war or disaster, but by its own arrogance. They had dismissed the humans as primitive children, never realizing that those children had grown up to become the foundation that held their world together. Now, as that foundation crumbled, they had only one choice left: swallow their pride and beg for forgiveness from the species they had wronged. The irony was perfect and perfectly painful. The human starship Sejong hung motionless in the empty space between stars, its sleek hull reflecting the distant light of nearby suns. Unlike the massive, ornate vessels favored by galactic powers, the Sejong was built for function rather than display. Its weapons were hidden, its defenses were subtle, and its true capabilities were known only to its crew. Captain Yunho stood on the bridge, watching as the alien delegation ship approached. The vessel was clearly designed to impress. All flowing curves and glowing panels that screamed wealth and power. But Yunho could see the signs of poor maintenance and failing systems that told the real story of galactic decline. "They are requesting permission to dock," reported Communications Officer Suman. "Grant it," Yunho replied. "But maintain full security protocols. We still do not know if they come in good faith or desperation." In the Sejong's main conference room, Ambassador Minho adjusted his uniform and reviewed the intelligence reports one final time. 6 months of isolation had given humanity time to analyze exactly how dependent the galaxy had become on human technology. The numbers were staggering, even to those who had planned the withdrawal. "They are aboard," Security Chief Taehyun reported. "Prime Vorthak, Trade Coordinator Kethril, and 3 aides. All appear to be unarmed, though with alien biology it is difficult to be certain. Escort them here," Minho ordered. "And remember, we are not the desperate party in these negotiations." The doors opened, and the alien delegation entered. The contrast with their first meeting could not have been more dramatic. 6 months ago, these beings had radiated confidence and superiority. Now they moved with the careful steps of supplicants approaching a throne. Prime Vorthak had aged badly in the months since the council meetings. His mechanical parts made grinding sounds with each movement, and his organic flesh had taken on an unhealthy pallor. When he spoke, his voice lacked the commanding tone that had once filled vast chambers. "Ambassador Minho," Vorthak said, his translator converting his words to perfect, humble English. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Minho gestured to the chairs around the simple conference table. No grand podiums, no elevated platforms, no symbols of hierarchy, just equals sitting together. "Please, be seated. I understand you have urgent matters to discuss." Kethril's crystal form was dim, her usual radiant light reduced to a faint glow. She activated a small holographic projector with shaking appendages. "The situation is critical," she began. "Galactic civilization is collapsing. Billions of beings face starvation, disease, and death." "I am sorry to hear that," Minho replied with genuine sympathy. "But I am not sure how this concerns humanity. As you made clear 6 months ago, we are primitive newcomers who have nothing useful to offer galactic civilization." The words hung in the air like a blade. Vorthak's mechanical parts whirred as he processed the quiet rebuke. "We were wrong," Vorthak said finally. The words seemed to physically pain him. "We underestimated humanity's contributions to galactic society. We failed to appreciate the sophistication of your technology and the importance of your expertise." Dr. Ji-won, who had been quietly observing from her seat, leaned forward. "You had the opportunity to appreciate our contributions 6 months ago. I presented clear evidence of medical breakthroughs that could help every species. You dismissed it without even looking at the data." "The cellular decay treatment," Kethril whispered. "We have studied your research since then. It is brilliant, far beyond anything we had achieved. Without it, 17 species face extinction-level die-offs." "And now you need our help," observed Dr. Suman. her fingers dancing over a data tablet. Your quantum networks are failing. Your food production systems are collapsing. Your transportation grid is unreliable, all because you never bothered to understand the technology we shared with you. She activated her own holographic display showing the current state of galactic civilization. The image was devastating. Red warning indicators covered most of inhabited space, showing system failures, supply shortages, and social unrest. "This is not a negotiation," Vorthak said desperately. "This is a plea for help. Billions will die if current trends continue." "Billions were always dying," replied General Deho, who had joined the meeting via secure communication link. "Disease, starvation, war, environmental collapse, these problems existed before humanity reached the stars. We offered solutions, and you rejected them because they came from a species you considered inferior." Defense Coordinator Thymos, representing the few military minds the aliens had brought, spoke up for the first time. "We have analyzed your defensive capabilities during our approach. Your technology is far beyond what you showed us during the Council years. You were hiding your true abilities." Admiral Junho smiled slightly. "We were being polite. You asked for our help with galactic security, so we sent advisors and shared basic defensive technologies. We saw no reason to demonstrate our full military capacity unless threatened. The stealth systems, the energy shields, the weapon arrays around your space," Thymos continued. "How long have you possessed such capabilities?" "Decades," Junho replied, simply. "We learned from Earth's history that peace requires strength. While we hoped for friendship with galactic civilization, we prepared for the possibility that friendship might not be offered." Minho placed a datapad on the table and activated it. The display showed the true scope of human integration into galactic society. Not just the technology they had shared, but the deeper systems they had built and maintained in secret. "You saw what we chose to show you," Minho explained. "Agricultural techniques, medical treatments, communication protocols, transportation systems. You thought these were the gifts of a primitive species trying to buy acceptance." "They were not gifts," Sumian continued. "They were infrastructure. Every system we shared with you was designed to make your civilization more efficient, more stable, more prosperous. But they were also designed to require human oversight. Not from malice," Jiwon added quickly, "but from practicality. Our biology, our thought processes, our approach to problem solving. These differences meant that human-designed systems worked best with human operators." Vorthak's organic parts pulsed with understanding and horror. "You made yourselves indispensable." "You made us indispensable," Minho corrected. "We offered partnership. You wanted servants. So we became the most valuable servants in the galaxy, so valuable that you could not function without us. And when you made it clear that partnership was not possible," Deho added from his communication link, "we took our services and went home." The alien delegation sat in stunned silence as the full scope of human strategy became clear. While they had been congratulating themselves on keeping the aggressive newcomers in their place, humanity had quietly become the foundation supporting galactic civilization. "What do you want?" Vorthak asked finally. "What are your terms for returning?" "Equal representation in the Galactic Council," Minho began. "Full voting rights proportional to our population and economic contribution." "Granted," Vorthak said immediately. "Recognition of human territorial claims and sovereignty over our current and future colonies." "Granted. Full partnership in all galactic, scientific, economic, and military endeavors." "Granted." Minho paused, surprised by how quickly the alien leader was accepting terms that would have been rejected instantly 6 months earlier. "And one more thing," Jiwon said softly. "An apology. A public acknowledgement that humanity was wronged, and a promise that no species will be dismissed or marginalized because of their age or origin." This time, Vorthak hesitated. The political cost of such a public admission would be enormous. His own career, the reputation of the Council, the pride of species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, all would be sacrificed. But as he looked at the holographic displays showing the collapse of everything he had spent his life building, the choice became clear. "Agreed," he said quietly. "We will draft a formal apology and present it to all member species. The Council will acknowledge its errors and commit to treating all species with equal respect." "Then we have an agreement in principle," Minho said. Standing. "Our technical teams will work with yours to begin restoring critical systems. But understand, this is not a return to the old relationship. This is the beginning of something new." As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Kethril approached Dr. Suman with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. "How long did you plan for this outcome?" Suman smiled, looking younger than her 30 years. "From the day we first made contact with galactic civilization, we studied your history, your politics, your psychology. We knew that eventually you would test our patience. We just had to be ready when it happened. And if we had accepted you as equals from the beginning, then none of this would have been necessary," Suman replied. "We would have been happy to share our knowledge freely and work together as partners. But you chose to see us as children. So we had to teach you what happens when the children take their toys and go home." Hours later, as the alien ship departed and human vessels began moving toward the galactic core, Captain Yunho made a log entry that would become part of galactic history. "The second age of human-galactic relations begins today," he recorded.